The Last of Us 2, an action-adventure horror survival game released by Naughty Dog on the PlayStation 4 and a direct sequel to the vastly successful and critically rated The Last of Us, released way back in 2013 for the PlayStation 3 and then remastered again on the PlayStation 4. The Last of Us, which is a third-person action horror game, is already a self-contained game that it didn't directly demand a sequel of any sorts. The story concluded in a satisfactory way with no cliffhangers or any hint at a sequel of any sorts. Fast forward to 2020 and here we are with a sequel to one of the most highly rated video games produced in the last decade. Please note that this review is a non-spoiler review and I will try to cover this game without spoiling the story to many who have not yet played the game. The Last of Us, created by Naughty Dog, have been riding high on the success of the Uncharted series and written and directed by Neil Druckmann, who previously worked as a game designer in few of the Uncharted games and The Last of Us Part 1. The Last of Us 2 is more of an evolution of sorts to the original Last of Us game, with action-adventure elements from the gameplay evolving into a more larger scale than the old game, also bringing the story the same if not more emotional weight than that of the previous game. Part 2 starts 4 years after the end of The Last of Us, with an older Ellie who has grown up and a lot more angrier than she was in the first game. She is on a quest for revenge due to a certain event that takes place in the game that shatters her world, and now she must take matters into her own hands to exact vengeance on those who have wronged her. The story also introduces a new playable character by the name of Abby, who is also on a quest for revenge. Both their stories collide to make this whole cycle of revenge that ultimately shows how damaging vengeance can be to humanity. The story also is a deep dive into human character study, as the game delivers through and through on all fronts. The characters in this game are so well written and fully realized that the player gets fully invested in the character. This also brings devastating consequences when something happens to them in the game. The emotional drama hits you, the more emotionally invested you become in the character. Consequently, these moments are far and many in this game, and the player is taken on an emotional roller coaster, and by end of the game you are left emotionally wrecked. That is how great the characters are written in this game. The story delivers experiences that are memorable and at times very uncomfortable, as you are forced to act them out yourself. As you may have guessed, Ellie is the main playable protagonist and the player must navigate Ellie through most of the game. Joel is given a smaller role this time around, where a new character, Abby, takes up almost half the time in the game. The game tries and explores the story from two conflicting sides to get the player invested in both sides of the story. The formula works and not work for many, and this may and may not divide fans of the original game. This is purely up to the player to come to terms with this aspect. Even the creators of this game have commented that the player may be divided on the story. I personally like the game has gone this route and taken a bold step and experiment with the story. Although some may not like this very much in the early parts of the game, but towards the end of it, the player comes to terms with the story as you get emotionally invested in both Ellie's and Abby's story. The story puts you in a position where you as the player need to make questionable and moral choices throughout the entire duration of this game. None of the characters in this game are purely good or evil, in that the character motivations are just as legitimate as that of any other. Most of the story and gameplay takes place in Seattle, where Ellie must travel to exact her revenge. The gameplay is just over 25 hours long and the player is never left bored or tired, as the semi-open world of Seattle is fully fleshed out and the player is given more in variety of locations and gameplay. No same place is visited twice and the locations are extraordinary and beautiful to look at. I sometimes had to stop and pause to take in the view of the empty streets and skyscrapers of Seattle overrun with flora and fauna of the post-apocalyptic world. How the stealth, action and survival play out is very familiar. That said, Part 2 has taken minor steps to add more variety to the gameplay than the first game. Although most of the gameplay mechanics remain the same, the addition of the jump button adds a new layer to the already great gameplay of the first game. This time the player can jump over objects and jump to reach new areas in this game, although this is nothing new in terms of gameplay when compared to other stealth action games of the same genre. It is still a relief that Naughty Dog has decided to add it. The gameplay takes place in shopping malls in multi-story skyscrapers, parking lots, and hospitals, and there is no shortage of locations that adds more to the variety in the gameplay. The player is given an option to play the game in stealth or go all guns blazing through different levels of this game. However, the latter may prove more difficult as resources and ammo are hard to find, especially if you're playing in a hard difficulty of this game. As the player, you will be facing enemies in both humans and infecteds. This time, the creators of the game have made lots of effort to make the human enemies more smarter and added more variety in terms of the different cults and factions that each wield different weapons and react differently to each other to make things more challenging. The game also introduces canine enemies for the first time. Dogs can sniff your smell and detect where you're hiding and also alert the enemies to your hiding place. This adds to more tension and challenge to the gameplay as it makes it more difficult to take out enemies from hiding spots. In terms of the infected zombie enemies, we see the return of the runners, clickers and stalkers of the previous game, but more menacing and smarter than Part 1. Part 2 adds a new infected type named by Shamblers that rush at you and dispense acid and poison gas that at times can get challenging to get out of. You need to think up ways to outsmart these faster and more menacing enemies to get out unscathed without losing too much of your life, as enemies can suddenly attack you from behind. The stalkers add a new level of dread as they can hide and stalk you from a distance, and when you get close they will suddenly jump you, scaring the shit out of you. I got a few decent scares out of these guys in the game. Sound design adds to the horror element of this game by sending chills up the spine. Whenever a clicker or another infected is in close proximity as a player, each infected produces a different sound and the player is able to identify the infected type without even looking. The sound design is A+ and makes this game stand out among the greats. Everything from the music to the sound effects of humans, the infected, from guns to bombs, add a whole level of experience to this game. Combat animation in this game are some of the most brutal I have seen. It definitely is not for the faint-hearted. The blood and gore and the bodies you pile up one after the other is very unforgiving in its execution, and the shock value from watching it can make you a bit squeamish. Those who are very sensitive to blood and gore should definitely avoid this game at all costs. But for all others, the kills and gore can give you a level of satisfaction through each kills you make. The choice of weapons you pick will determine if you want to take the stealth route or to take the full guns blazing route, and this choice is given freely to the player throughout the game. In some scenarios, the game forces you to move and puts you in situations where you need to act quickly, putting you in the edge of your seat. I had rush in some parts of the game that gave me a heightened sense of danger that I rarely found in other games of the same genre. The artfully detailed environments and locations add tons of backstory in terms of journals and letters that you find scattered throughout. Tragic stories of residents or of people who have lived there are detailed and give you a sense of dread to the events that might have transpired there. The game rewards exploration, and many useful items like inventory and ammo are scattered throughout. The environments and locations also add more detail to the game by placing you in situations where you may have to traverse a location on foot or through an abandoned building or through a river using a boat. You do get to ride a horse through most of the semi-open world areas of the game to get to that area faster, and you're rarely left without any options. Part 2 also adds many environmental puzzles that can feel fresh compared to the stealth elements and action in the game. The puzzles are also not too complicated or mindless as they offer up good rewards and allow for story progression in the game. The graphics in this game are some of the most impressive and breathtaking parts of this game. This game offers an astonishing level of graphical performance for a console towards the end of its life cycle. Naughty Dog have achieved this impressive feat even in a dated console that stands head to head with some of the most graphically advanced games released on PC. From textures to colors to shadows, everything about this game screams pure graphical power. When played on a PS4 Pro, the game can stand out even more. Coming to the verdict. This game is a accumulation of everything Naughty Dog has put out over the years. Great graphics, excellent sound and level design, improved enemy AI, excellent environments and locations, and a decent story. Although the story is bound to disappoint a few fans of the first game, it honestly shouldn't stop you from playing this game. The ending of this game could have been better if you ask me, but overall I found this game to be an enjoyable experience. I have come across a few hardcore fans of the first game who expressed their disappointment with the story and a few events that take place in it. But take my word for it, play the game and judge for yourself. The creators of this game have put a lot of effort into making this game and it shows. There are lots of memorable moments in this game that will definitely stand the test of time. Overall, I would rate this game a 9 out of 10. So what do you think of this review? Let me know in the comments below. If you have enjoyed this video, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. If you would like to see more reviews like this in the future, please hit the notification bell icon so that you get informed whenever a new video is up. That's it for the end of this video. Take care, stay safe, see you guys in the next one. Bye.